Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of NBRI, New Business and Retail Insights from the Center for Retailing Studies, Mays Business School, Texas A&M University. I'm your host, Venki Shankar, Director of Research and Coleman Chair Professor of Marketing. It's my pleasure to welcome our guest today, Dr. Baohong Sun, the Dean's Distinguished Chair, Professor of Marketing, and the Associate Dean for Chung Kong Graduate School of Business, CKGSB Americas. Baohong also directs CKGSB's Customer Information Management Center. Prior to joining CKGSB in 2011, Professor Sun was Carnegie Bosch Professor of Marketing at the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon University. Baohong's research focuses on rational and strategic consumer choices and dynamic structural models. She studies dynamic and interactive marketing mix and customer information management. Most recently, she has modeled dynamic and interdependent consumer decision in e-commerce and social media platforms. Professor Sun is the recipient of numerous awards for research and teaching, including the 2008 finalist for John D.C. Little Best Paper Award, the MBA George Leland Bach Teaching Award, and the CART Research Frontier Award for Innovative Research at Carnegie Mellon University. Baohong also serves on the editorial boards of Journal of Marketing Research, Marketing Science, and Journal of Marketing. She has extensive consulting experience, including working with Bosch, Boy Scouts, Highmark Insurance, John Deere, and IBM. Baohong's research has been cited in The Economist, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, and Bloomberg, among others. Baohong has a PhD in economics from the University of Southern California, Los Angeles. Welcome, Baohong, for this conversation. How have you been the last several months?
Yeah, thank you, Venki. I'm always happy to see you, and I've been
Likewise.
knowing you for a long time. I know, and I know your center. So I remember 10 years ago. So you invited us to campus to talk about the mobile marketing. So then that was the time that brought me to new technology. So when I was still doing like a scanner panel data research. So after I came back from your conference, I upgraded my phone, upgraded my research. Yeah.
That's great to hear, yeah. And I'm glad that you still fondly remember that. I have described you in the terms that I've known you, but how would you describe yourself maybe in 5 words or less?
That's a difficult one. Yeah, whatever I say about myself, my 2 teenager boys will say, no, you are not. Yeah.
But you are entitled to say how you perceive yourself, or what are the key attributes that describe you?
Yeah, so one thing I wanted to maintain or manage my mentality is more, maybe one word is like a tourists. So because tourists are very adventurous, so they want to see new places, they wander into different places, and they're very curious. They want to find out what's going on, and they want to learn. They want to meet with new people. And I think most importantly, tourists are very happy. So
that's great to know. And most importantly, from a business standpoint, tourists have deep pockets that all the businesses would love to have tourists come again and again. But that's a very interesting way that you describe yourself. And I love the adjectives that you use: adventurous, curious, and happy. All of them really describe you, but that's good to hear. And Baohong, you did your PhD in economics, and then you ventured into marketing. So you're truly a tourist to marketing, but no longer now. But how would you describe your research journey, and what are some of the interesting turns, interesting places or destinations that you visited in your taking your tourist analogy a little bit farther in your research?
Right, yeah. So I was trained as an economist. So along my journey, and I think I made several turns. The first turn happens when I went to Berkeley. I was visiting a postdoc position where I learned about marketing, all the literature, all those, the way, the problem formulation. It's a huge literature. So with the help of my colleagues like Tulin, Russ, so I think I learned a lot that prepared me for the marketing field. And my second term is after I joined Carnegie Mellon as assistant professor. So over there, I joined a group of people who are true believers of rational expectation. So I learned the tools of structural modeling, which allows me to look deep into consumer insights. So I learned how to model consumers' learning, variety seeking, habit formation, addiction, maybe self-control, or maybe signaling. All those kind of hyperbolic discounting, all those things are very, very interesting to me. So they all use the tool of structural modeling. So that allows me to understand the consumer's decision process. So that's the second term. And the third term, I think happens to most people, is after tenure. So after tenure, we have a little bit of freedom. And then many of my colleagues from other fields, from OR, OM, computer science, psychology, and they lead me into another world to make my research more relevant. So they take me to the visits to companies like PNC, like IBM, and we listen to their problems. So, and then how to frame the problem kind of a solving, and how do we integrate our tools, our literature, and how to be useful to industries. And that requires not only problem-solving approach, but also interdisciplinary research mentality. So that really opened my eyes. So basically, how to make our research not only fundamental, but also kind of useful. And the fourth term turns when I joined CKGSB. Because of family reason, I have to put the family together. So I'm stationed in New York, which gives me opportunity by CKGSB to travel around the world. So I have the opportunity to visit many countries, so I can see a little bit more across the country, across the continents, and also across industries. Because in the US, at a business school, good business schools, you see there are lots of established companies, you see big box companies, their research problem. But then with the technology, and you have Silicon Valley, you have emerging from India and China, so many startups, they're solving different problems. So that led me to look at these startups, investors, and what they are thinking about, and how do they affect this incumbent, this big company, big brands. So now I think I'm at a relatively new kind of a stage of research. After venture through all those like a problem-solving approach, or startups and incumbent, I'm back to my training as an economist. So much machine learning tools has been developed, algorithms. How do we bring together those fundamental econ approach, marketing insights, and the new tools that data scientists developed? So I'm back.
That's an interesting journey, and you've literally traveled a lot in your research and visited different places, just like a tourist will do, but in your research arenas. But you mentioned that right now you're in a position, you like traveling and so on, and I have to bring this out now, unfortunately, due to COVID-19, travel has been curtailed. So how are you managing, especially you have, I understand, although you're based in New York, you have a lot of ties back to Chung Kong, which is based in Beijing, right? So tell us something about how you're managing it. It's all virtual, or are you having to do a little bit of travel?
Yeah, before this COVID-19, I basically spent 10 months here and 2 months back in Beijing, Shanghai, to teach, to pick up what's going on in Asia. And then I come back here because the mission here is to deliver the knowledge to the American executives about what's going on in China. So during the COVID-19, I'm basically stationed here and teaching over the internet.
Okay, good. I assume as much. Since you mentioned that your most recent research is taking yourself closer to machine learning and integration with economics, and particularly you having done quite a bit of recent work on mobile, social commerce, and so on. Tell us something about what is the primary difference that you see between China and the US in terms of the use of the media and the consumer behavior, and how do you see that evolving over a period of time?
Right, yeah. So I travel back and forth and I see lots of things. I try to compare the digital landscape and the innovation properties of these two countries. I think China is very innovative, but most of the innovation is at the consumer level application, business application. Chinese companies are very good at using technology to engage consumers and to sell more product because China is still a manufacturing industry country. And another innovative thing that is unique to China is that the ecosystem built by Alibaba and Tencent is fantastic. So it's basically a combination of Facebook, Amazon, or maybe this Instagram, or a combination of many things in the US. So the ecosystem is really worth studying. So from China, I see it's a huge experimentation field. I see the speed, I see the scale. So that is why many of our colleagues are getting data from China to study. So,
and since you mentioned the ecosystem, and you mentioned Alibaba and Tencent, but I like to call this BATS, which is Baidu, Alibaba, Tencent, and Sina, which are the major digital players and digital network owners. You also have the emergence of TikTok, which in China is a Douyin, right? Douyin. And how do you see that kind of short video format developing, and how do Chinese consumers' behavior changing as a result of the emergence of Douyin?
Yeah, so I think in China, there are several things that is making China very innovative and us to study. So number one is what you mentioned, is this social commerce. So Chinese company wants to sell, and the social commerce, like in Douyin. So it's not only a short video, but behind the short video, this one person can sell billions of RMB within one video session, and to engage consumers and to sell. And what is even more than that is that he himself become a brand. So become a C2B brand, and he has a big company, big warehouse, and a big logistic team to sell directly to the consumers. So this like a live stream commerce and D2C and many, many things related to social commerce is budding in China. So that is very advanced.
Yeah, speaking of that, we've heard of influencer marketing here, where there's a lot of celebrity influencers, but they go differently, on YouTube video, they have their own categories. So there are some beauty influencers, there are some influencers for tech products, but what seems to be emerging in China is, as you said, consumer brands. So consumers themselves become brands, and whatever they sell out of their garage or basement or warehouse, they become more popular thanks to this innovation. Do you see that this is a sustainable innovation, or is it just a fad? Because at the end of the day, ultimately, consumers also want to buy something that is more quality, valuable, long-term. So do you think this is a transitional phase, or is it here to stay?
I think with the support of the consumer behavior in China, because consumers are very social in China, especially with the support of business model innovation in logistics is going to be a long-term thing. It's going to disrupt this traditional kind of way of selling. So even in China, because of this, many big brands, like Western brands, they also hop on this platform. Those become key opinion leaders, and then they just hop on, sell. So yeah, it's an efficient way of selling. Yeah.
Okay, so you think that this is going to stay for a longer time, and you mentioned live streaming, which is again a very unique thing about China that is not very as popular and as wide scale prevalent in other countries. You think live streaming is the future of e-commerce, or do you think live streaming is just one small part of it?
Yeah, Banky, I think that's a very good question. I think that I believe it's going to stay because we believe in consumer decision journey, right? So
Right.
traditional marketing is good at selling, but this kind of a curated commerce help other consumers to do research. So to sail through all those enormous amount of information, somebody help me to curate the products. And I trust him. This is just like a TV kind of a session, right? So somebody
Right.
help me to do this, endorse the product. So I'm willing to buy. Also, it's entertaining. So
Right.
I, especially if they carry high quality product, big brand names, I think it's a good mistake.
Right. And speaking of live streaming, we can't help not talk about the Singles Day that's coming up in November 11th, which is a huge event, right, in China. And last year, Alibaba sold about $38 billion worth of merchandise. And JD.com was not very far behind, maybe $20+ billion. And every year I notice it keeps going up and up. So and most of the sales also coming through live streaming during those days. So do you think this is the future of e-commerce again, not just live streaming, but big blockbuster days like Singles Day? And here we have an equivalent of Black Friday and the Cyber Monday, which is now getting elongated into 2 month period. But do you think that is something that's unique about China that's going to just catch on in other countries and also grow further in China?
So Becky, yeah, I thought about this issue. I think I'm more pro like a selling approach or innovation, business model innovation that help brands to develop higher quality products and sell for value, not sell because of the promotion. So
Okay.
yeah, basically this is 9/11, like a double 11 kind of an event in China. If
Right.
it serves the purpose to let people be aware of new brands, and that's good. But if just to for sale, to increase the traffic on the platform, it may not best serve the interest of the brands. So I think we, as a marketer, we know that. So how does that help? What helps the platform may not really help the brand. So how to build a brand name, have more higher profit, and to do more product innovation is still the long-term kind of surviving.
All right. So you view this more as a day that creates an excitement and get more people to come and visit the platform and announce new products. But however, it's not going to be a regular event that sells products most of the time. Ultimately, it goes back to product innovation, product value, and how you serve the customer needs. Going back to marketing's basics, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I think the event will go on just like Thanksgiving sales, but yeah,
Right.
brands need better things to survive.
Right. And let's relate that to some of your research. And you mentioned that one of the biggest advantages of working in this new ecosystem as a researcher is the access to data, right? So are you able to collect a lot of data of new business models, new activities and innovations that you can study this and come up with better insights using either just straightforward machine learning, a predictive modeling approach, or combining it with economics? Do you think there's more and more scope for doing that going forward?
Yes, Becky, absolutely. So there are several things I was interested in this trying to, from an economist or marketing researcher's perspective, to look at this new machine learning data scientist tools. So I tried to. There are several things I was interested in. I'm interested in now. The first one is that in economics, we assume utility functions are independent. We make our own choices, right? But when social media comes, everybody's choices are I'm influencing you, you influence me. So how do we economic choice model take that into account? So a few years ago, I tried to tackle this problem using traditional way, structural model. We use dynamic game. So basically, if the users on platform, they compete for their reputation, and then in that way, we can make their utility function interdependent. And recently, I totally ignore choice models. I use machine learning approach, which is network embedding. So basically, treat each consumer as a data point. So we use the data from Pinterest. So we have a consumer as one of the node, and the image they pinned as another node, and the description words they use another node, and the link between each node will be their decisions, right? If I ping this number on.
Yeah.
And then by analyzing all those, how those three type of nodes align with each other, we try to infer consumers' preference, their needs, their wants, so and then draw some conclusions. So that's one thing I was trying to look at from choice model versus machine learning, try to find a common ground. The second thing, which I've been trying to learn, is that time series. So state dependence is a huge market literature, right? We have information pricing, everything. But machine learning, a lot of product recommendations, the one that works very well has been popular is like collaborative
filtering,
across consumer kind of a thing.
Right.
So basically, I was trying to learn machine learning approach. Basically, try to look at if I have one person's history, how do we predict the next move or the next choice? So one data we got was from 27 consumer movement data. So basically, if you are traveling everywhere, so we basically the mobile app reviews you like every moment your trajectory. So basically, how do we use machine learning approach? Try to predict your context, your kind of feeling, and what you're looking for, and then we can do more contextual marketing, better prediction. So that's the data we got.
And what insights, what are some of the key results you found in those research? Because as you said, these are two different paradigms. In machine learning, you use all the tools and the data to predict better, but you may not be able to explain well, you may not be able to interpret very well. But in economic structural modeling, you're able to do all the story behind it, utility based, and you're able to explain and predict, but you can't handle a lot of data, and the complexity of the structure that you impose may not be feasible to put on a huge data set like that and get decent results, right? So how do you reconcile the two? And first of all, start with what are your key findings in some of these research that you've done, and how do you reconcile with the insight that we've got from economics-based research?
Those are two big questions I'm researching, I'm learning the answers on. So one thing we're learning from this like a trajectory data. So once we have the consumer's trajectory, basically we can study how the stores, neighboring stores, compete with each other, or maybe they're complementary with each other, right? And so we can find that some stores in a shopping mall, and then they will be the anchor store. Consumers go to that shopping mall because that store is there, and then people always travel over there, stop at a store, but they never like buy a lot of things. They stop very briefly, and then they go to another store. So most likely, we shows that from H&M is a big kind of an anchor store, so attract lots of traffic. But people don't spend lots of time over there, and then they move on to other stores in a shopping mall. And then,
so what you're saying is, in a mall-like situation, H&M serves as like the front door or entrance for the customers who just go through it but don't spend a lot of time on it. Right?
Yeah. And then, interestingly, we can also study from H&M where does he go, which other store he go, and then you can see which are complementary.
So what do you find? What are some of the paths that you find, and how do you explain that?
Some of the stores are probably based on demographics, right? So some young girls, they go to other like Gap or the other things, and so that can explain something. Another thing we're working on is that the restaurants. So we're studying something because trajectory you can link with the graphic information, zip code. You know the demographics. So we are studying their eating habit. So consumers, what type of restaurants attract what type of consumers? And the restaurants could be healthy or fast food, right? And then you can see how people travel far away, and then what's their consumption pattern. And then we can link that with their visits to the grocery stores. So basically from this, you can piece out the whole picture of their lifestyle, and then find out what kind of lifestyle they're there. Do they visit like a gym? And then eventually we probably can predict like
Okay, this is
how often they
fascinating.
visit hospitals. So
Right. This is fascinating because you seem to have access to this kind of data. But let me put this in the COVID situation where people are not able to go out to the retail stores and restaurants remain closed for the most part, or at least limited service, the takeouts and deliveries. How do you think, and now people are spending more time on digital, do you think we can use the similar approach to understand consumers' digital journey as a representation of their lifestyle, and we can piece them together if we just do this trajectory analysis in the digital world?
Yeah, absolutely, Banky. I think the trajectory on the digital, on our screen, on our keyboard is very similar to the offline. The offline information is a little bit richer and has more economics because we have a transaction cost, we have switching costs, right? And
Right.
of course, competing with each other. So here is only a click away. But both trajectory, right, reveals our what we're thinking, what we need, and how brands can better serve us.
Yeah, but the challenge here is that the digital journey is not just one digital device. Consumers are now using a variety of digital devices, the smartwatch, smart speaker, and a tablet, and a laptop, and a mobile phone. All of these are creating a difficulty in tracking, right, for the researchers, because you may not have awareness, because there's no single ID that I can see in common. So you think this is going to be a challenge for marketers and researchers because marketers will have to make decisions in the limited information that they have, and how, if they do that, how accurate are those, and what are some of the caveats that they should use in using the results for their decision making?
Right, yeah. So Becky, this goes back to the ecosystem built by Chinese entrepreneurs.
Right.
That is very innovative. When we talk about ecosystem, it's horizontal ecosystem. Okay? So Alibaba built a system. They know not only your search, what you bought, but your financial, because they have a ad finance. And then they have offline stores. Everything is linked. Basically, in China, Alibaba has built thing that is going to host your complete consumer decision journey. So we have lots of researchers using data from Alibaba, but less known is that Tencent is actually even more advanced on the mobile system that really locking consumer decision journey from pay, from everything, because it allows each of the brand to build a mini app. Like a branded app is built upon the WeChat. Okay, so nobody has access to that data. But if that data is available, you can see how powerful it is. It's not only the ecosystem of consumer decision journey, but also how it interacts with the brands, each of the brands. The brands.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Whereas in China, they have access to this kind of data and they can combine these together. But everywhere else, it's not easy because not one player can have access to this kind of a data. Now that brings the issue of privacy, right? So do you see it appears as if Chinese consumers are less worried about privacy because they're not very concerned whether their data may be misused, unlike in the Western world. Tell us something about some of the differences, maybe in culture, maybe in the system, that we need to understand better to make sure that we understand how that ecosystem works in China, but not here.
Yeah, I think Chinese consumers have much less concern about the privacy. And intuitively speaking, if you ask consumer even here, if the company use the data in the right way, I think consumers won't be that bothered by less concern, right? And the data on mobile phone is with the consent of this consumers, and then the company will collect the data. So basically, in the future, one thing I'm researching on is reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is that this week, we're wrapping up a paper. It's an analytical piece. We're trying to study. So when it is optimal for the firm to do reinforcement learning, to adopt algorithm-based marketing decision making. So related to GDPR, right?
GDPR, yeah.
So basically, it's that it is okay for the firm if I track like one consumer's traffic on my own website, it should be okay. Like the data should belong to both the consumer and the company. So if the company is going to use reinforcement learning, it's algorithm based, I'm going to use consumers' history, what they have been doing on my website. That is relatively legal, right? So basically it's the company's data. And then I can better serve the consumer, right? So interesting finding is that when the company is in a monopoly situation and is forward looking, I really want to keep the consumer, and then learning becomes very useful. But it becomes the companies has less incentive to do learning, to explore this data they have, is that when consumers are extremely impatient. So you do one thing and then explore a little bit and consumer will switch away to the competitors. And that is going to stop the companies using their data. So basically under some, we're trying to derive the situations. Under that situation, the company has accumulated a lot of data, but they don't have the incentive to use it. So
okay, yeah. That's a very interesting insight. Let's hope there are some empirical studies to test or verify that or validate that. But that's a good way to look at these issues. Now, we should also talk a little bit about some of the issues that some of the Chinese companies now face. Now, we know that TikTok is being, at least there was this news item that Oracle and the partners have taken the lead in securing the majority ownership in TikTok. The issue is still not yet settled, but that plus the fact that WeChat may be banned or may not be downloadable. What do you make out of all these issues? Where do you think we're headed?
Yeah, so this is lots of things are involved, right? Yeah. So I think this is an experimentation of Chinese tech companies going global. So for the brands, for the traditional products, globalization was not very successful. But these tech companies are more successful, led by the first wave was this game companies. Now it's this content companies. So yeah, I think when Chinese companies going global, they need to follow the local kind of games, right? The local rules. They're concerned of those things. Yeah. So yeah, and there are lots of concerns that I think are under investigation. Yeah. So
do you think this would give us some put a damper on the research because you're getting data from China now freely? Will that is that still available, or can we as researchers do experiments to learn more about this, or do you think this will also be constrained now going forward?
I think it's going to have a marginal change, but still it's going to be going forward. But all the companies are trying to comply with all those rules. So for example, if you want to research at Alibaba, you have to follow strict rules, like where to use the computer, where to download the data. But I think those companies, they have the incentive to develop more better and algorithms. So they need scientists, researchers to help them.
Right. And because you sit in a very interesting position, because you're the associate dean of a very major business school in China, but based in the US, and you fostered a lot of collaboration between them. How do you think the MBA education and the business education, where do you see that's going in China now? Because being the associate dean, you're really having the bird's eye view of what's happening over there.
Right. In China, there's the general MBA. The market is a little bit mature.
Okay.
Mature. But Chinese people, they love study. So they're not going to get only one MBA. They're going to get 2 EMBAs and 3 is PhD in administration. So their learning is like a lifelong. So basically, the market can be renewed. But the new trend here is that the finance is becoming the fintech, like a globalization of RMB and also this fintech, blockchain, all those smart contract. There are lots of things going on in China. So there are several hot areas. One is this finance, fintech. The other one is this manufacturing, smart manufacturing, and that's also a very hot area in China. So
there is a demand.
Still,
yeah, there's a lot of demand for education. That's what you're trying to say, and that's likely to continue for the rest of the future, right?
That's
and, and since you're still based in New York, there's a lot of cross programs you do. I know that I've been following you. There's a lot of interesting programs you put out, executive education and so on. How is the market for that? Now with the pandemic, I'm sure that the market has come down a bit. So where do you see that going?
Yeah, so we have multiple programs being designed and marketed. One program was hit by this coronavirus because the design was how to sell to China without going to China.
Right.
So that was a high demand on that. But then because of the tax kind of the trade war, the trade negotiation between these two countries, and also directly hit by this many U.S. companies, the budget was cut. So the program, I think. But then there are general lots of new kind of demand for education.
That's good to know. Yeah, that's good to know. Now, so far we've talked a lot about your research, your views of Chinese consumers in the future, but let's better understand your other side. What else does Baohong San do, right? Which is like, what do you like to do in your spare time? What kind of books do you read? So maybe give us a little bit of peek or insights into that.
Right, yeah. So I'm a tourist, right? Tourist likes eating. So so in New York,
you're a foodie.
Yeah, lots of good restaurants. I follow the chef, the new recipes, especially from different countries. So and then there are lots of events, cultural events, and lots of famous people passing by New York. You just sign up and show up and meet with new people, talk to strangers, find out what they're doing. And
that's all come to a halt now due to COVID-19. So hopefully you will find some other ways to engage yourself, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So what kind of books do you read? What are some of the other things that you do to keep yourself away from research but still busy?
Right. So I really I follow lots of tech kind of people a lot, like Elon Musk, all his kind of a biography, and fascinated by what he has been doing and the breakthrough. Despite everything, but he's giving us encouraging news and information. And I think you and we both have kids, and raising and nurturing another human being is.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. You do so many things so well. Now, this program is viewed and listened to by different stakeholders ranging from students to former students to entrepreneurs to executives in the retail industry and other industries. What are some of the things that you would suggest to them in terms of your final message? Where do you see that future is headed post-COVID world? And what are some of the ways in which you think any of these stakeholders could be engaging themselves to prepare themselves for the future?
Right. One thing I'll be always thinking is that technology put customer in the center, and so customer-centric, right? In order to understand the consumers, we need to understand their needs, wants, and decision process. So this means that no matter what tools, algorithms, or machine learning we borrow, we need to let the machine recognize that people are smart and consumers are smart. So basically, everything we've been studying, all the marketing literature, consumer insights should be weaved into the algorithms when companies make that kind of decisions. Now, in terms of innovations, I think innovation is popping up from many, many different countries. China, India, South Africa, Israel, probably leapfrog the US because they have more startups. So there are many things I'm keeping an eye on. Number one is that we discussed this is social commerce. Is that how to use social mobile to engage consumers. And China is very innovative in social fishing. So they use WhatsApp and they try to get a $100 ROI, all because of other consumers. And I strongly think that this Internet of Things will be next wave of things. China has lots of pop-ups that wearables, the cars, the stores, the technology is putting more and more data online. And how do we engage machine learning AI to better serve consumers? And another thing I'm keeping an eye, but I think it's going to dramatically change the way we do marketing, will be the smart contract. And lots of data privacy issue, the way we distribute coupon, we do advertising will be totally changed. And we need lots of researchers and entrepreneurs to make that happen and to research what's going to happen, what is going on.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's a lot to keep in mind. So you mentioned innovation, you mentioned putting customer at the center of our thinking. You mentioned social, you mentioned the new technologies such as IoT, and keeping our eyes and ears open and trying to, come up with some social contracts, which is also something that you've suggested. So that's a lot for people to digest. So on that note, I wanted to thank you again for wonderful insights that you provided, Baohong, and thank you very much for your time too, and wish you all the very best in your continuing research and the future developments that you are involved in. And hopefully, I'll continue to learn from you as I've always learned going forward. Thank you very much.